Hey everyone, welcome. We're really glad to have you guys join us today for the MS in Athletic Training virtual open house. I'm Ellen Cummings. I'm the communications coordinator for the LSU School of Kinesiology. You've probably gotten some emails from me, so thank you again for attending. Just a couple of things before we start. You are all muted, but we really encourage you to use the, I believe it's the chat function on the participant screen or the Q&A function. Feel free to type into that throughout the webinar. We will have a dedicated section for a Q&A at the end, but if you have questions as you think of them, you are more than welcome to type them in. If you experience any connectivity issues, say you get kicked off or anything like that, please email me at ecummings1, that's ECUMMINGS1 at lsu.edu. Lastly, we're recording the session. So once we have that recording completed, I'll have it posted on our website. That's lsu.edu/athletic training within about a week or so. And with that, again, thank you all for joining, and I will pass this over to Dr. Ray Castle.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here. And for those of you who are not able to attend, thank you for watching this virtual open house for our Master of Science in Athletic Training. As part of this, I'd like to also do a quick introductory welcome. I'll get them to their video on real quick. Is Dr. Amanda Benson, who's our clinical coordinator, and then also Dr. Rebecca Hirschhorn, who is our newest faculty member, who just joined us over the summertime. So just general format for what we will do today is I will start off some of the other overview of the program and other highlights. Dr. Benson, as our clinical coordinator, she will focus in on some of the clinical components or the clinical components of our program, and also talking about our facilities. And then Dr. Hirschhorn will be moderating questions coming in, and once we get through our presentation, we'll about 20-30 minutes, then we'll run in. She'll be able to field your questions to us, and we'll be able to answer those. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hello, my name is Amanda Benson. I am the clinical education coordinator, and I am in charge of coordinating your rotations at your clinical sites. So any questions that you have about that, you can address toward me.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started, and Rebecca will be able to join us in a little bit on this for the Q&A side. So today's format, we want to highlight a couple of different areas. One is talking briefly about our faculty and preceptors, obviously our clinical sites, the skill sets that make up an athletic trainer, and what you will be able to do upon leaving here at LSU if you're coming here, and then also career opportunities down the line that already exist for our students and also for our students that have been in the past and also in the future as well. We'll discuss our curriculum plan, both the classroom and the clinical side, talk about the application process and the application checklist. And then we have obviously open your questions up in a Q&A session. So we want to spend about the last half of this hour with that. So make sure you can send your questions in at any time, even when we get into the open chat session if a question arises. So moving forward. So obviously you see our faculty here. For myself, I've been here since 2000 or about 20 years. Dr. Benson's been here 7 or 8 years, has extensive experience also in athletic training education. And then Dr. Hirschhorn is obviously our newest faculty member, has also extensive experience in our background, one in emergency medicine and epidemiology. And then also she just came here from Auburn University, where she was completing a postdoctorate fellowship. So that just comprises our full-time faculty. So let's move forward, talk about the skill sets of an athletic trainer and what those possess, not just from the standpoint of working. Typically, we think of it as a moving into athletic setting, but the skill sets that athletic trainers use today in a variety of settings, these are just some of the ones you see, the major areas and some of the things you would be trained here at LSU to perform. Obviously, we have one area in terms of emergency care, being able to diagnose and treat injuries, from wellness and overall health promotion. Think about the therapeutic intervention, the injury rehabilitation side. Also think about wound closure in the scope of what we work with physicians and other providers in performing day-to-day skills. And then even moving forward is moving down the line, such as in residency training, which is another level of training past the Master of Science in Athletic Training, is looking at becoming a first assist under a physician in physician practice setting. Obviously, being involved as a researcher, and that looks at very different levels, and not just doing studies, but doing case studies, doing presentations. That's where we also focus with our students being able to be highly qualified and also skilled to do presentations when they leave here, and then also potentially moving into various private practice health settings. So career options, obviously I mentioned that before, a large majority work in specialty areas. We're trained in those areas and then move additional training as well as orthopedic and primary care. And then also we think about the typical settings we have are hospitals, sports medicine clinics, obviously the college and high school, university performing arts, such as Cirque du Soleil. You look at even, from an occupational standpoint, Amazon hires injury prevention specialists, Delta Airlines, in these numbers, they hire athletic trainers and even different occupational medicine. And then also we think about down the line what we're looking at. So our focus is also thinking about what you will do, not just now in the first two when you're in our program, but what's going to happen 5 years from now. So we're trying to set that stage for you. When we look down the line, we also have postgraduate specialty areas in looking at residency training and other types of board specialty certification through the Board of Certification. And those are additional things we prepare students to get additional training after the fact to work within the full scope and potential for their practice. Just one example of this is one of our former graduates, Carissa Ackles, who graduated in 2011. Right now, she works in California as an injury prevention specialist, and just some of the things how her preparation when she came here, she's from Houston area and moving here, and what the impact LSU had on her. And I think the same applies for many other students. She has one of the special things about Carissa is she started her own nonprofit as the Golden Cause. And one of the things that we try to do here is we try to help students find their passion. And Carissa is just one example of finding her passion and helping others. One unique aspect for our program that we see a tremendous potential for, and we've worked very hard in terms of our curriculum, is not just having the AT credential, but what that looks like for students. They want to have different specialty certifications. So two that we already have built into our program that's not required, but it's optional. Students want to do these different ones. One is getting your licensure or certification as a nationally registered EMT. We offer that in the first semester in the summer course as part of our emergency medicine for the athlete trainer. Students can sit for that, the state and national registry, or become certified as an EMT. Then also after the first semester in the fall, students can sit for their strength conditioning certification specialty. So we build content in as just some of the examples to move students down to another additional level of expertise that makes them highly qualified and sought after. So just real quick by the numbers, our max cohort size that we would accept is 26. And then we have a number of experiences specifically in the second year that are immersive, where there's no formal, you're not going to a class, you're immersed in with a preceptor and truly learning the practice of athletic training to your fullest potential. We also have 60 weeks of total clinical experiences over that in a variety of settings that Dr. Benson will discuss as well. From LSU, obviously, we have a number of elite athletes, not just here, but we also have other settings outside in the Baton Rouge area that we work with, and also provide opportunities for students if they want to do that in getting our relationships with other providers across the country. We have an extensive clinical base from physicians, athletic trainers, other healthcare providers that are impactful, not just for LSU athletics, but also for Louisiana, the state, the country, which really is one of the true blessings we have here in working with a number of just exceptional clinicians. And also from our faculty and staff as well. They're highly regarded, and you can look through their respective pages on websites, et cetera, to see what their excellence is in patient care and research and athletic training and helping out for athletic training student resource. So real briefly about the application checklist, encourage you to go to the website. And if you aren't certain about something, then I definitely encourage you to reach out to one of us to ask that question, because this can be a very extensive process, but we try to make it as simple as possible. One is we have to have prerequisite coursework. We go through, and then we're also having a 3.0 preferred in the last 60 hours and prerequisite coursework as well. Of note, something we changed this year is that instead of requiring the GRE for every student, if you have a 3.2 on your last 60 hours and a 3.2 in your prerequisite, then you can, if you've already taken the GRE, you can still add that to your application packet. It will improve your packet, your score. However, you have below that, then you would need to have the GRE as part of your score. Obviously, athletic training observation hours, and think about the ATCAS application, graduate school applications. Let's look at this real briefly, more extensively, what this looks like. So obviously, if you go to our website, we have our admissions process, and that process starts with creating a profile in ATCAS. That's the common application system that programs use. And you would upload all of your information into here. You select LSU as your school of choice. And once you do that, then you automatically start receiving information from the LSU graduate school. So it's merged in that material. The actual application process for the graduate school probably takes about 5 minutes to complete because everything is already submitted into ATCAS. So they all go through the vetting process, including your transcripts, and it moves over to the application. So a couple of key dates, it's already on our website. Our application cycle started on July 15th. The early application cycle ends on November 1. So you would want to have your application completed beforehand. We're well aware that you may not have all your prerequisites completed, may not until the spring. And we take that into consideration, and it's not required that you have to have prerequisites completed before the November 1 deadline. After that, we start our review process and also interview up through December 15th, interview process. After December 15th through the early January, we send out acceptance letters and for students to accept that as well. What also we do is we look at also any other eligibility for financial aid or tuition waivers that are eligible at LSU. I'll talk about that in a minute about financial aid. If you do not meet that, if you don't meet the application deadline, then you can still apply between November 2nd and March 1st. However, it's based on the number, if we fill all of our seats, then we move that, we would tell you we're on a wait list versus moving down the line. So if you have questions about the application process, again, just feel free to reach out to us directly, and we're more than glad to walk you through that process or any questions you have. Oh, sorry about that. So as far as one of the questions we get as far as tuition and quick facts. So one of the things that's really unique about LSU is that the graduate school offers full tuition waiver awards. This year alone, in our inaugural class, LSU awarded over $450,000 to in-state and out-of-state applicants for tuition waivers. That's a significant savings to you that our students are accepted receive. The criteria is on the LSU graduate school website. And then you can also reach us. There's a number of different criteria that students meet. Once you apply to LSU and part of the ATCAS process in graduate school, you are automatically evaluated and you're notified of your eligibility for those awards very early on, before you even receive an acceptance notification or any notification, whatever that may be, early on. So that's one of the first things we do to help in making that decision process. To the right is just a general idea from a 2-year estimate based on this past year or this current year, what tuition would look like. So we have required student fees. That's the university requires those fees. That's over a 2-year period, not 1 year or 1 semester, but the 2-year total. As far as lab and classroom fees, we don't have any required lab or classroom fees, such as paying for equipment or other types of materials during their 2 years. Those are all embedded as part of what LSU provides to students instead of having to pay additional expenses. Textbooks, this is probably consistent with other schools. We probably, throughout the 5 semesters would run about $1,500, maybe a little bit less based on whether your students would get a digital version of a book or something may run below that, but that may be the top end of that. As far as resident fees, that's what you would look at approximately for 2 years. and then also for non-residents total. That combines the student fees and tuition all together. So just to look at that, but we can walk through that with you as well if you have any specific questions that look like for semester by semester. So we think that based on what I've already mentioned before, you think about the accessibility to resources, and we'll talk more about that in our clinical sites. You'll learn more about shortly, but also the ability to get to be multi-credentialed. Our focus is really helping students to go change healthcare, not only to go change it, but to be a part of that process here, and then also impact others once upon graduation. So as far as our program, it is a 2-year program. It starts in the first summer. There's 9 credits in the summer. Then we have fall and spring courses. Ours are designed so that we have in the fall and spring, these courses are set up, for example, the ATRN 7101 and 7102. Those are courses that are taught for an hour and a half on Monday through Thursday. And then in the midpoint of the semester is about a week break where there are no those classes. And then the next set of classes are a 7-week schedule. For example, 7103 and 7202 is Monday through Thursday from 9 to 12, for example, those 2 classes combined. So they also have clinical courses that run in between, and Dr. Benson will talk more about that. Same thing for the spring. And the second summer or second year, we moved more into a clinical focus. And one of the things we did was we have a summer we will teach that course. It'll be primarily online. We've made a hybrid version as we're moving into that. But the one really fantastic thing I think is it allows students to really look at what they want to do in terms of garnering additional experience in their desired area. In early fall, in August, we start the AT 7300, which is an immersive experience where we mentioned there's no other courses you see there. Then it moves into the fall, and then the spring, your classes are finished by late February, early March. Students are taking their BOC certification exam, graduating, and then hopefully we receive a job and moving on to do great things. So I'm going to turn it over now to Dr. Benson, and she'll talk about the clinical overview of the program, and then also talk about some exciting information we have about our new facilities that will be coming on board next year. Dr. Benson.
Hello, everybody. Our clinical rotations, I think, are one of the strongest parts of our program, specifically because our students are immersed right in the clinical setting, right from the beginning. Our students are going to do multiple rotations that we'll talk about in a few minutes. You're going to have experiences with physicians. You're going to have experiences with our fellows that are here working with our physicians. You'll have experience with our certified athletic trainers that are part of our staff. You'll have the opportunity to work with some of the area high school athletic trainers. So there's a lot of things that you're going to get exposed to. Okay, so as you can see, we have a large number of preceptors that work with us. And so those of you that are not familiar with that term preceptor, what that means is they are a certified allied healthcare provider, whether they are a physician, a certified athletic trainer, who will oversee your educational piece while you're getting hands-on experience. You may have heard that as exponential learning, but you really will be immersed with them. I want to be honest with you and say that this is a time-intensive piece, but you also get class credit for this. So you'll receive in the fall and the spring 3 credit hours your first year, and then your second year you'll have a complete immersive clinical experience. And what that means is you will be there at a clinical site and have absolutely no classes. You'll just have that immersive opportunity in that semester. And then in the spring semester, your senior year, you'll have other opportunities for a class in a clinical rotation. So it's a wide variety of things, and we have a lot of people who have a lot of experience here. We have our new director of sports medicine, Bo Lowry, is the former head athletic trainer for the New Orleans Saints. We have Jack Marucci, who works with us, who those of you who are familiar with baseball has developed the Marucci bats, but also is our new director of innovation. And so he does a lot of research. So if that's something that piques your interest, we also have work with mental health counselors and our nutrition staff quite regularly. So if that is something that is of interest to you, you will get exposed to that as well. So our clinical sites, we have multiple clinical sites. One of the great things about Baton Rouge is that we have 3 major area hospitals. We have Ochsner Hospital, we have Our Lady of the Lake, we have the Baton Rouge General. We specifically spend a lot of time working in conjunction with Our Lady of the Lake and with the Baton Rouge General. We also use the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic as our primary physicians for orthopedic injuries. 3 high schools that we have created really strong relationships with are Central High School, Dutchtown High School, and Sandoval High School. So you can get a flavor of what that's like as well. Okay, so I kind of alluded to this before, and this is, I know if it looks a little bit overwhelming, but really what this is by example is that depending on what sport that you are working with, maybe what we call a full semester rotation, meaning that you are there the entire fall semester. So for example, you might be at soccer your entire fall semester. And then your spring semester, you may have what we call 2 mini rotations. So you may spend 8 weeks at swim and dive, and then you may spend 8 weeks at LSU baseball. Then you may have a combination. Let's say you're working with our men's basketball team. Well, the first 8 weeks that you're part of the program, you might be, let's say, at track and field. And then for the next 16 to 18 weeks, you might be at men's basketball. And then on the backside, the last 8 weeks or 6 weeks, you may be with women's volleyball. So it just depends on what sport is going on, how your rotation plan will fall. However, I can guarantee you that your first year, you will have a full semester rotation and 2 what we call the mini rotations. Every single one of you will have the opportunity to work with a contact sport at some time throughout your academic career. Contact sports for us is football. Now that can be football at LSU or that can be football at an area high school. But you will have the opportunity to work with a contact sport. You also will need to work with a opposite sex sport. So if you're a male, you'll have to be able to work with females. And if you're a female, you'll have to be able to work with males. And then we call them co-ed sports, but a sport in which they're male and female at that sport. So for example, swim and dive, track and field, cheer, something like that. Your immersive experiences will be at the beginning of your second year. And those rotations will start in the preseason time. So those will start in August, and then you will work with that team, and that will be your only responsibility. You will not have any classes. You will not have any other coursework other than what's required for that immersive class. So our instructional facilities, we are fortunate enough to have our classroom that is actually attached to the Broussard Athletic Training Room, which is right underneath Tiger Stadium. So that's kind of what you're seeing in the slide to the left, and then the slide kind of to the top right-hand corner. And so what's really nice about that is if we need to utilize something from the athletic training room or we need to step outside, we just open the door and walk out. The other thing that is great about this is that is where our athletic training rehab area is what you're seeing in the bottom right-hand corner. One of the other things that's amazing is that we are part of a brand new multi-million-dollar renovation that's happening to the Huey P. Long Fieldhouse. And the Huey P. Long Fieldhouse will house a new state-of-the-art classroom with a simulation lab that has been designed for us. So as you can see, this is just sort of some rudimentary blueprints right here. But we'll have a classroom section. We'll have an area where you can do practical exams. We'll have an area where you guys can kind of have like a little study pod. And then we'll also have the simulation lab where we'll have mannequins that we can make have heart attacks. We can make them change their blood pressure on you, things like that. So you can actually have the opportunity to see what happens in an emergency. Really quickly, while I'm here, I see that I have a couple of questions that have popped up, so I will do my best to answer these. First of all, one of the questions is, what is the selection process for which students are working with clinical sites and teams? For example, how do you determine which student will work with LSU football versus high school football? That is a good question. And the answer is it sort of depends. We talk to the students, we meet with the students, we learn what their long-term goals are, and then we work to place you in an appropriate setting based on your desires, based on your career goals, and based on the CATIE accreditation standards that we have. The other thing is, may you please explain the section about the GRE and GPA section again. So in regards to the GRE and the GPA, what Dr. Castle was saying is if you have above a 3 point, can we go back to that slide, please? Okay, sorry, thank you. If you have above a 3.2 on your last 60 credit hours and above a 3.2 on your prerequisite courses, you can waive your GRE score, okay? If you fall below that, if you fall below a 3.2 in those sections, then we will require your GRE score. Does that sound correct, Dr. Castle?
Yes, that's correct. And I would
Okay.
just like to add that if you have a question about that specifically for your own situation, just to reach out to us. We can set up a meeting, Zoom call or other meeting to discuss your specifics about your application packet. We don't want you to do something unnecessary. So just to, again, just reach out. This has been something new for us, but again, we've had several questions about that, but we want to help you to navigate through that process. So we'll give it over to Rebecca, and she'll be able to handle more of the questions coming through that Dr. Benson and I can field for you all.
And I'm just going to answer one thing that just popped up that is clinical related before Dr. Hirschhorn hops in. It says, do students typically travel with the sports they're working with to away games? And the answer is it depends. It depends on what sport you're working with. It depends on how long they're going to be gone and how many classes you're going to be missing. So it is definitely situational, but multiple teams do travel their students.
Hi, everyone. All right. Our next question is, are volunteer hours at a physical therapy clinic, such as Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic, acceptable?
So the quick answer is yes, it does count. We look at every hour that students would obtain as really important to the development and understanding of healthcare in general. Keep in mind that our applicants have to get a minimum of 50 hours under a licensed athletic trainer. In the case you're working, that student's working in a clinic, then you work under a physician, you could get the other 25 hours or more. We encourage you to submit all of those hours cumulatively, whether you've been paid as, like, for example, a physical therapy technician or an occupational therapy tech or a medical assistant in a clinic, you get those hours collectively and have it verified, whether it's volunteer, whether you're paid, or whether you did it for class credit. So all those do count when you submit those in, that we hold that very important as part of an applicant's process for that. So I hope that answered that question.
I'm just going to add to that. One of the questions I get asked the most about clinical hours is specifically, can I do my hours under a physical therapist and have those 75 hours count? The answer is no. You must still have hours, those 75 hours must come directly from a physician or a certified athletic trainer. Now, if you do other things, be above and beyond that, you can include that in the application, but the 75 hours must be from a physician or a certified athletic trainer.
I think to add to Dr. Benson, I think that there's sometimes you may have some providers that are dual credentialed. Just keep in mind that they would have to be under, like, they get those minimum hours as the 50 hours minimum under an athletic trainer, the other hours under a physician. And then after that, it could be under anyone, or you do all 75 under a licensed athletic trainer.
Our next question is, if we don't have a bachelor's degree in athletic training, would that affect our prerequisite dues with the clinical hours if we aren't able to have those hours?
So as far as the answer as far as pre-athlete training, we do not look at that as being above or beyond. You have to have any degree. We've had students who we accepted this past year who did not have, they had exercise science, kinesiology, they were pre-med. They may have been, even we had one student who I believe was initially several years ago was library science or some other degree altogether, but went back and got the required prerequisites. So what we look at is your overall GPA, the last 60 hours of GPA, regardless of what the degree is. You have to have the prerequisites completed by the end of prior to starting in late May, our program, if you're accepted. And that's the main requirement. And then getting those hours under, you have to get the healthcare experience hours. So those are the main requirements you have to have. So you do not need to have a degree in pre-athlete training. It can be in any degree. The focus is you've got very good scores on your GPA, and then also on your meeting the prerequisites, which means, as I said earlier, you do not have to have all of those completed. You can, as part of the application process, we're looking at that, knowing that you're going to complete some of those in the spring, and we accept students when they have not completed all of the prerequisite credits.
Next is, if my GRE exam is scheduled in December, will I still be able to apply to the program?
Yes, you will. You just need to notify us of that. And we would just look at it as far as consideration. So it doesn't preclude someone from being accepted or not accepted. So you just need to notify us. That would be a requirement. Now, in terms of the GRE, that would be if you do not meet the 3.2 requirement edge, then you would need to complete that before November 1 as part of the application, or you would then be on the secondary cycle of applicants after November 2nd.
Where have recent alumni ended up in the workforce?
I can answer that. All of our alumni are gainfully employed if they choose to be. We have students that are working in college settings. We have students that have taken 1-year NFL internships or internships at another Power 5 Division I school. We have a number of students that fall in love with the high school setting and are working as either a full-time athletic trainer in the clinical setting or a teacher/athletic trainer. We have students who are working for corporations such as Amazon. So we have a wide variety of job employment. All of our students are employed, and I said if they want to be employed. So for example, if you would like to go to a specific small region, it may be difficult for us to get you a job in that particularly small location. However, if you're willing to move or try new things, we always have jobs, and we have an alumni webpage, Facebook account and Twitter, and we post those jobs regularly for those individuals.
Do you have a list of resources of the training programs we can attend?
I'm not
Not
quite
yet.
too sure about that, but I mean, what you're quite asking, but anytime that there's extra events that are going on, we always post those and make them available to you, because they do change quite regularly. If there is any extra continuing education events, we let you know about those. Dr. Castle, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think just if it is local for us here, we do, as Dr. Benson mentioned, we send out through our department and our college, send out notifications. They would get volunteer medical experiences such as working races or other events to make that available as well. So knowing from the region as well. If you're not certain where to do that in your area, whether you're out of state, you could also feel free to ask us. We can probably connect you with, we would try to connect you with someone in that area that may have some, may help you to find like volunteer experiences at a race, or like if it's a Chicago Marathon or Houston Marathon or other events that may be going on, they may be looking for that as well.
If we are not finished with our last 60 hours before the application process, should we still take the GRE to be on the safe side?
So the first question would be is where you are. If you were applying today, what is, and since this is mid-semester, you would want to look at where you are in your last 60 hours. So the one thing I encourage students to do is if you've already started your application ATCAS, then once you select LSU, we can then look in the system. As long as your transcripts are uploaded into the system, we can tell you what your last 60 hours are, and then your prerequisite hours are. So knowing that, we know that you're going to complete those hours at the end of the spring semester, whether it be 6 hours, whether it be 15 hours. We know that already, because what we would do is if you go through the process and you're accepted, then we say you're accepted. It's contingent upon you meeting the classes in the spring satisfactorily in the spring semester. So we did that this past year, and we will continue to do that. So students still had a full semester, or they had several courses remaining to meet with graduation requirements and or prerequisite requirements, and they finished those in May.
What experience does your faculty and staff have with athletic training prior to LSU, such as professional sports, other collegiate athletics, or other?
So like I mentioned previously, our new director of sports medicine has worked or was the former director of sports medicine with the New Orleans Saints. A number of our faculty, or a number of our staff, I should restate that, have had NFL internship experiences, professional baseball experiences. Most of our staff, if not all of our staff, have worked at other institutions, other collegiate, whether it be Division I, Division II, or Division III. We have some individuals on staff who have come from a high school setting to work within collegiate athletics. I think we have a very, very well-rounded staff as far as our professors are concerned. We have all worked in various settings as well, whether it be high school settings or collegiate settings. All of our resumes or NVIDIAs are posted online with our experiences, and the bios of our staff are also online. So I encourage you to go and look at that.
Kind of add to that, maybe Dr. Benson, if you want to add just more specifically a couple of things you've done recently. I know you traveled out of state to cover championships or other events or some other things in the past, and then Dr. Hirschhorn, if you do the same, and about your background, and I'll do this, I'll follow that up as well.
Sure. So I spent 11 years as a program director and department chair and clinical coordinator at Troy University prior to my time here at LSU. I'm originally from the New York, Western New York area. So I was at Buffalo, Eastern Kentucky, and the University of Southern Mississippi for my terminal degree, my PhD. Some of my outside experiences, I have worked with USA Olympic teams and volunteered my time there. I just recently worked with USA Taekwondo doing some of their events. I've also spent an extensive amount of time volunteering for our external accreditation agency, the CATIE, where I review multiple programs from across the country. I am also in charge of the National Scholarship Committee for the NATA. So just some of my other volunteer things. But again, if you have any specific questions, you can email me directly, but you can also look at my Vita that's posted on our webpage.
I got my degrees from James Madison University, University of South Carolina, and then University of South Carolina again. I have clinical experience working with collegiate beach volleyball, outreach at a variety of different high schools. I've worked with a professional ballet company, public safety. I also like to volunteer to work large events such as the Boston Marathon. And I do also have clinical experience working as an advanced EMT, which I continue to do while I'm here as well. As Dr. Castle mentioned, earlier this year, I completed a postdoctoral fellowship at Auburn University as part of their Warrior Research Center. So I have a lot of research experience in emergency medicine, epidemiology, and exertional heat illnesses, if that's something anyone is interested in as well.
And to add to that, so as far as my background, and again, you can visit our website and go to our faculty pages for more information. I've been practicing over 30 years as I'm a licensed athletic trainer. I'm also dual credential as an EMT. As far as past experiences, I've worked the Atlanta Olympic Games. I've traveled other various championships, worked at the high school setting for several years, worked in even outreach. Obviously college setting I've done for several years, traveled with the US Olympic team to worked with the Pan American Games, traveled overseas with USA Bobsled, a number of different things I do. As Rebecca cover, next month, we'll go up to Boston Marathon. We'll both be heading up there to do medical coverage again. And also I do a lot of coverage out across the Southeast in terms of medical coordination of various events also. And then as far as the EMT side, we have both Rebecca and I are, to add to what she just mentioned, we're both employed by the largest privately owned ambulance company in the country. And we both do PRN work covering various events through that. And as far as expertise area, emergency care, emergency planning, that's been in my area or wheelhouse for a number of years, exertional heat illnesses and along those lines. So Rebecca, I'll give it over to you to field more questions.
All right, next, what about high schools that we can obtain the hours at?
So if you are part of the LSU community right now, we have numerous high schools where you can reach out to volunteer your time and obtain some observation hours. If you are not in the LSU community right now, we encourage you to reach out to whether it be your institution's athletic trainers or if you know of some athletic trainers in that area. If you really are struggling with finding some resources, you can reach out to any of us and we can try to use some of our connections to help you find a location to do observation hours.
Can I get observation hours with LSU Athletics?
So we get this question a lot, and as of right now, we are not doing observation hours with LSU Athletics due to COVID restrictions. This may change as the LSU community becomes vaccinated, but as of right now, we are not doing observation hours in the athletic training room. However, we are working toward potentially having a course that would allow you to do observation hours in that setting. And so if you specifically are interested in that, you can reach out to me individually on my email. It's Benson, ABENSON at lsu.edu. And I can keep you in the loop on that opportunity.
Does anyone on the faculty or staff have experience or connections with hockey?
Yes, I do. My opportunities, I'm from Buffalo, so my opportunity, I've had experience with the Buffalo Sabres and also our club hockey teams when I was there. So former colleagues of mine work within the NHL, and so yes, I do. And I believe there are a few other individuals from the Northeast on our staff who also have experience in that area.
Will I need to take a graduate school comprehensive exam in order to graduate from LSU?
So the answer with our program, in terms of graduating, our exit exam for students is the BOC certification exam, or the national credentialing exam. Students would take that in their last semester. So that is the one exam that they're being prepared for as part of the whole 2-year process that they would do that. Now, is it required to graduate? No, they would still be able to finish, but that is our metric. Is we want students are going to practice as an athletic trainer. This is they're not having to take a separate exam. They're doing that as part of that process anyway.
Could you go over the fully immersive experience again? Where have students done their immersion in the past, and during what semester does this occur?
Sure. The clinical immersion occurs in your second year in the program, specifically the fall semester. That will begin in August and run through mid-October before you start taking your second 8-week classes. So we've currently let in our first master's class. So I can't really tell you where our immersive students have been in the past. However, we fully intend to utilize our LSU experiences here on campus, but we are open to discussing other opportunities that you may be interested in.
What would you recommend doing in order to build a strong application to apply for the program? More so, does it look good to be involved in the LSU community with volunteers or joining clubs on campus? What do you like for outside of grades and academics?
Well, I'll speak to this, and I think Dr. Benson can also provide some additional insight as well. It's just not about being good grades. Being involved, being a community. Being a part of the community, regardless of where you are, we feel is a very important process in that you're bringing your own passion to our program, whether it be doing, for example, you may be a volunteer with the National Diabetes or the Heart Association, doing those things that bring by you doing that brings passion and to our program. It helps us overall growth as well. So part of that is getting those work experiences. And one of the things, just to be, I think outside of school, you're getting, if you've worked even a job paying for school, I think the one thing is don't undervalue that, because you're getting the best experience in terms of communication, working with others. And this is what we do all the time as healthcare providers. So those are just some of the things to look at. Obviously, with your letters of recommendation that you'll submit into ATCAS that will come to us, that will speak volumes to the individuals you've worked with and can express your potential, not just within healthcare, but what you provide to the LSU community.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I get asked that question quite often, and I am just looking for a well-rounded individual who really is interested in providing quality healthcare to our athletes and to the community. So I look for somebody who is passionate about what they're doing, and I don't necessarily count the number of clubs that they're involved in, and don't necessarily just look at their GPA. I look at it as a person who's passionate about what they want to do. One of the things I wanted to really quickly follow up on after I thought about the person who asked about the immersive experiences, I think one of the things that you may also be alluding to is internship opportunities. The summer between our first and second year, you have one online class and that is it. So if you decide you want to pursue an internship opportunity on your own during that summer, if you decide that you would like to go home and work, whatever it is that you need, you have that summer opportunity as well, because you'll be taking one distance ed course.
How much will this year's cohort interact with last year's?
I think probably just from just the easy side, they have separate courses, but in terms of clinicals, we have students we have older students that are seniors that they're in their final semester. They have 2.5, 3 years of clinical experience. They're highly trained. They're working at the top of their potential as a healthcare provider. And students coming in as a first year, as a first year student, they're working with them side by side. They work with the preceptors. The younger are less experienced in terms of the clinical side for our program. They work with the older students are more experienced, are working to help mentor them through the process. And then also they're working through that process, and they use the younger students use the older students as a learning resource. And then also the younger students, older students are also working with students to and hone their skills as well. So they're working with students on a daily basis throughout the year, and they will continue to do that throughout the program. And the same thing will apply next year when we have our first, we have our new cohort come in, and they'll be working with the older cohort.
For the observation hours, can we get a letter from our head athletic trainers stating we've completed the hours? For example, my school requires 1,800 hours and 5 semesters.
Yes.
Yes. All it takes is, some people are doing this, and I think, because I get this question a good bit, is where you have two things. One is you may have individual sheets, but if you have a letter, and I had this question, actually the last question I had the same question last week from a applicant, is if you've done that over 2 or 3 years, just have a letter from that supervisor on letterhead, and then they will be able to have a signed letterhead and stating this is how many hours they obtained from a time frame, total hours, a summary of what those experiences were, and you would submit that. And if needed to, you would just be able to provide as additional proof of whether it be a spreadsheet or however it was documented.
I'm a student trainer or a student athletic trainer here at Mississippi State and built strong relationships with the ATs. Would I be able to come back for the clinical immersive?
So we're handling all of the immersives kind of on a case-by-case basis, and because of the unique time frame that it is. And so I guess my answer to that would be, we can have conversations about that, and you can reach out to me individually to discuss that. But the short answer is we're open to all kinds of opportunities.
So we've got time for probably 2 more questions. So I'm gonna let Rebecca go ahead and continue that. But if you have any last questions you would add, please send those in, and Rebecca can share those with us to answer before the hour ends.
How many applicants do you usually receive per cycle?
So last year we have, we're going through this for the second time. So it is a new process that we're going through. I will say this in terms of, I have to go back and look at the total number, but I know that typically for that we offered or look at the total completed applicants, we were about 30 or 40% over the national average for students coming through last year, just in our first year. So again, we look through every student individually. We're not looking at far as, we look at quality. And, you know, the most we would actually go through that process would be, we have a maximum of 26. But as you saw from this year, we have 12 that we accepted to our cohort. Ends up typically fewer numbers, and as students and for new programs will continue to go up. So we're already ahead of where we were last year, and which is exciting. We have a lot of students who are already excited about our program and reaching out already. We're expecting, you know, right now we have, or from last year we accepted 12. We offered, we have, you know, we'll go up in the 30s to 40s, but we have completed applications that go through all the way through, and we review and fully vet out and review some through that process.
Do hours from our high school count for consideration?
So we are looking to have your 100 hours, I'm sorry, your 75 hours of observation completed within the past 2 to 3 years of your application. So those hours do count, just because we see that you've done this for a considerable amount of time. But we would like your observation hours done a little bit more recent than 4 years.
I want to clarify that. I think just to, as far as we have on our website is for high school hours, they do count in terms of your overall experience, but the hours that you would submit as part of your application will be everything since graduation from high school. So nothing in high school. But when you look at overall, like your resume, you would be able, in your cover letter, or if you've had that experience, then you want to express that this is what you did. As far as your overall experience, the length of your experience as well, that tells a valuable, it's an important story or part of your own individual history if you've had that. And the same thing would apply even if you did not have high school experience. Just like if you've worked in, volunteered at a hospital for 2 years, and it may not be related directly to athletic training, but you're involved in healthcare, and being able to tell that story is very important. And we value that, as I'd mentioned earlier about the hours, but we just keep those from everything past from graduation, from basically when you started college or after you graduated from high school. Anything after that, that's what we look at, whether it be a volunteer, paid, or in a class credit opportunity.
When it comes to scholarships, do we apply through LSU Graduate School, or does the program offer them?
So automatically students are automatically, they go through the process. When you go to the graduate school application, you have FAFSA or financial aid, you finished all that application material as well. As far as the graduate tuition waiver award, students are automatically vetted for that scholarship through the graduate school. As far as other financial aid, if you have a question about that, then reach out to me and I can contact you with our graduate school officer who handles financial aid, and they can walk you through that specific process. Or you could go straight to the LSU Graduate School on we have links on our website and the university website, and reach out to those officers there. They can answer those questions about financial aid. But as far as the scholarship, the graduate school tuition waiver, that is the one item that we automatically vet through, because that is offered on a first about 100, 200 they're offered per year throughout the whole university. And we are, in part because of our application process a little earlier, then our program sits up at the very front of the list to be eligible to receive all of those awards that are eligible. So I think that comes to the end of we're coming up on the 3 o'clock or end of our time. So I'll turn this back over to Ellen. On behalf of Dr. Benson and Dr. Hirschhorn, we want to thank you so much for attending. You'll be able to watch this. Ellen will give more details about that. And then also our information, I'm going to post this up. I'll go to the next one. You'll see our information on page. I'll leave that up there. You can take a snapshot of it and also visit our website. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic day.
So thanks, everybody. As Dr. Castle mentioned, please don't hesitate to contact us. You see the information there. It's also on our website. Listed below. And as I spoke about earlier, this session is being recorded. So once I have compiled this recording, I can upload it to our website. You can find it there. I'll also upload it to our YouTube channel, which is on the LSU School of Kinesiology. If you just search that in YouTube, you'll be able to find it there. So again, thank you for your time, for all your questions, and please don't hesitate to reach out again. Have a great day.